Imagine you're hiking high up in the Sierra Nevada, beautiful scenery, and then you see something totally unexpected, something that, well, maybe shouldn't be there.
Exactly. It's a story about a discovery that's really shaking things up, ecologically speaking, right there on California's mountaintops.
Yeah, so today we're doing a deep dive into Jeffrey pine trees. These trees are suddenly showing up way, way higher than anyone thought possible.
That's a real head-scratcher. We're looking at a recent paper in the journal Madronio, detailing observations by Professor Hugh Safford from UC Davis. Really fascinating stuff.
And our mission here is to figure out, why? Why are these trees moving uphill so dramatically? What does it tell us about climate change?
And there's a twist involving an unexpected helper in all this.
Right. So let's get you that quick insight, that understanding of this pretty significant shift happening right now.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. What exactly did Professor Safford find up there? What kicked this all off?
So picture it. September 2024. Professor Safford's just hiking casually on Mount Kauai in the Sequoia National Park. He's seeing the usual suspects, foxtail pines, lodgepole pines, the typical high-altitude trees.
Right, the ones you'd expect.
And then, bam, something totally out of place. A Jeffrey pine.
A Jeffrey pine, way up there. Because usually you find those, more mid-mountain, like Tahoe or Mammoth elevations?
Exactly, upper montane forests. But he found this one above 11,500 feet. That's squarely in the subalpine zone. Much higher, much harsher.
Wow. Okay, so not just a little bit higher.
Not at all. This is where it's wild. The highest one he documented clocked in at 12,657 feet. That's, let me check, 3,858 meters.
12,657, that's huge.
Yeah.
How does that compare to the old record?
It blows it away. It's 1,860 feet higher than the previous record for Jeffrey pines.
Incredible.
And get this, that elevation might actually make it the highest recorded tree of any kind in California, at least for now.
Wait, really? Higher than the usual high-elevation champs like foxtail pine?
Apparently so. The highest known foxtail or other typical subalpine species top out around 12,034 feet. So this Jeffrey pine is potentially the current altitude king.
That is genuinely surprising. And wasn't there something about a really small one he found?
Oh, yeah. The record holder itself is just a seedling, 6 years old, only 10 inches tall.
Tiny. Just starting out way up there.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? A new generation managing to get a foothold in this completely new, challenging environment.
So this isn't just about established trees somehow surviving higher. It's about new ones sprouting.
Right. It suggests an active movement, a response that's happening now.
And the immediate suspect, I imagine, is our changing climate.
That's the leading idea, absolutely. It seems pretty clear that earlier snowmelt is a big factor.
Okay.
And just overall rising air temperatures. These combine to make those higher spots less, frozen and forbidding than they used to be.
So it opens up a window, basically,
Yeah.
for seeds that land there to actually sprout and grow.
Exactly. Conditions that were impossible before are now becoming maybe just barely possible.
And this wasn't just one lucky tree, right? Safford found more.
Oh, yeah. Once he realized what he was seeing, that initial hike turned into more of a survey. He found and checked out 14 Jeffrey pines above 11,800 feet.
14. And some were older.
Some were estimated to be at least 20 years old, so this isn't something that just started last year. It's been quietly happening for a couple of decades, it seems.
Interesting. So a longer-term trend than just one seedling suggests.
Definitely. And he saw about a dozen more he couldn't get to easily. It suggests a real presence up there.
And I gather he's planning to go back with his team for a closer look.
That's right. A full research expedition is planned for the Southern Sierra. They need to understand the scale, the mechanisms, really dig into it.
Which makes sense. But you mentioned an unexpected helper.
Yes. This is maybe my favorite part of the story. The prime suspect for how these seeds are getting way up there is a bird.
Let me guess. The Clark's nutcracker.
You got it.
Yeah.
Famous for their seed caching behavior, especially with high elevation pines like whitebark pine. They're crucial for forest regeneration up high.
They're amazing birds, burying thousands and thousands of seeds each year. They basically plant forests.
They really do. And the working hypothesis here is that they're doing the same thing with Jeffrey pine seeds.
But Jeffrey pine seeds are usually found much lower down, so the nutcrackers are flying them uphill, like thousands of feet uphill.
It seems so. They gather the seeds, fly way up, and bury them in caches for later. But some of those caches get forgotten, or the bird doesn't make it back.
And if the conditions are now right, thanks to warming, boom, new tree starts growing.
Precisely. It's like this accidental bird-assisted migration program. leapfrogging, as Safford calls it.
That term leapfrogging really captures it, doesn't it? It's not a slow crawl up the slope.
Not at all. And that's why this discovery is kind of rattling some existing ideas.
How so? What does it mean for climate models?
Well, a lot of models assume species migration uphill will be this slow, gradual process, maybe too slow, actually, to keep pace with how fast the climate is changing.
Right, they model the trees themselves, slowly advancing their range edge.
Yeah, but those models often don't fully factor in this kind of long-distance seed dispersal by animals, especially birds like the nutcracker.
So the nutcrackers could be allowing these pines to move much, much faster than the models predict.
It certainly looks that way. Safford literally said it's this crazy leapfrogging of species, and it challenges what we thought we knew about how these systems react.
It suggests ecosystems might be more dynamic, maybe more unpredictable in their response than we thought.
Exactly. And he also noted it's not all good news. He sees trees like these Jeffrey pines surviving in new spots, yes, but he's also seeing trees dying off in their traditional lower habitats.
So it's a reshuffling, with winners and losers.
A very rapid reshuffling, it seems. Now, obviously, surviving way up there at nearly 13,000 feet is tough. How are these Jeffrey pines actually coping?
Well, the good news for them is that Jeffrey pines are actually pretty tough. They're known for being relatively tolerant of both cold and drought.
Okay, so they have some inherent resilience.
They do. That probably helps them hang on once they germinate.
Right.
But there are signs of stress.
Like what?
Safford observed that some of the older, taller Jeffrey pines near the timberline had dead tops. It suggests they're really pushing their limits.
Right, like the conditions are still incredibly harsh, even if they're surviving.
And critically, he noted, they don't seem to be reproducing up there yet. No cones, no new seedlings from those high-elevation trees themselves.
So they're pioneers, but maybe not yet a self-sustaining population up high.
That seems to be the case for now. They're surviving, maybe even for decades, but not yet thriving enough to reproduce. It's a contrast to the foxtail and lodgepole pines nearby, which seem less stressed at those altitudes.
Interesting. It really highlights the nuances. And you know, what strikes me about this whole thing is how it was discovered.
You mean not by satellite or anything?
Exactly. No database flagged it, no AI analysis, no remote sensing picked up these record-breaking trees, especially that tiny seedling.
It really underscores the value of, well, just looking, of having boots on the ground.
Professor Safford made that point quite strongly. He said we can't just rely on technology, especially for seeing smaller trees or understanding changes in these really remote, high-impact zones.
Places like high mountains and high latitudes where climate change effects are often amplified.
Right. He basically said you absolutely have to get people out there to see what's really happening.
Which is why his upcoming fieldwork with his students going to Mount Whitney and back to Sequoia Kings Canyon is so important.
They'll be gathering that crucial ground truth data. You just can't get that perspective from orbit alone.
Definitely not.
Okay, so let's recap the key takeaways from this deep dive. We've got Jeffrey pines showing up at record-breaking altitudes in the High Sierra.
A pretty clear sign of climate change impacts, enabling them to survive where they couldn't before.
We have the Clark's nutcracker playing this surprising, maybe crucial role in transporting the seeds way uphill, that leapfrogging effect.
Which challenges some of our existing models at how fast species can migrate in response to warming.
And it all highlights the absolute necessity of direct, on-the-ground observation. Technology is great, but it doesn't catch everything.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder of that. This isn't just a future prediction, it's a real-time ecological shift we can observe right now in these sensitive high-elevation areas.
It really is, and it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If this kind of unexpected partnership between climate, a tree, and a bird is causing such rapid change, well, what else is happening out there?
What other surprising adaptations or interactions driven by climate change might be unfolding that we just haven't stumbled upon yet?
Makes you think about how interconnected everything is, and just how profound these changes might be. Lots to keep an eye on.